You're welcome back to the Naija Filmmaker, a podcast for us to talk about Nigerian filmmakers, their films, and how it can build a diverse and functional industry. I'm your host, Sadagot. On this episode, my guest is Abba Makama. He's a filmmaker, visual artist, and a member of the Surreal 16 collective. His two features, Green, White, Green, and The Lost Okoroshi, have screened at prestigious festivals, including the Toronto International Film Festival. We talk about his fascination with dreams, tips on festival submissions, and his hopes for Nollywood. If you're a new listener, you're welcome, and I hope you enjoy. Hi, Abba, you're welcome to the Naija Filmmaker podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Abba Makama. I'm a filmmaker and visual artist living in Lagos.
Can you tell us how you got started in filmmaking?
I got into filmmaking about 10 years ago. I had moved from University of Jos to upstate New York, SUNY Fredonia. Upstate New York, SUNY Fredonia.
Yeah.
And I was studying business management. But at the time, I wasn't, there was a connection lacking between me and my classmates in that department. I always found myself hanging out at the art department with art students, music department. And it was also the same time I started discovering film as an art form, not something that I just watch for entertainment, but something that was deeper than that, something that had subtext, had substance, something that was just deeper. I started discovering films that weren't just for bubblegum consumption. They were more profound, films that you would watch, and afterwards you'd be like, what did I just see? And you'd spiral into this deep thought, and then I was also watching films just because they were good, I started understanding the difference between what makes a good picture and what makes a bad picture.
Yeah.
And I think one of the films that I had seen that I really connected with was Good Will Hunting by Gus Van Sant, which was written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and directed by Gus Van Sant. And then afterwards, I had seen Reservoir Dogs, which by Tarantino, which I had seen years ago in the 90s, but I didn't like it because, again, then I was watching films just for entertainment and it seemed slow and it was claustrophobic. I was like, why are these guys just in one location? Wouldn't they come out of this warehouse?
Yeah.
All the reasons I didn't like it were now all the reasons why I loved it the second time seeing it. And from that, I wanted to see more of his work. And I think at that time, Kill Bill Volume 2 had just come out and I had seen 1. And after that, I just wanted to see, I just fell in love with cinema, I started watching, learning about directors, and I wanted to see what inspired Quentin. The world, just their universe kept on getting bigger and bigger. Discovered the works of Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola. Usually, most people who get into cinema, they fall in love with the new Hollywood of the 1970s, the new wave. Francis Coppola, George Lucas, Brian De Palma, Dennis Hopper, all those films from that era. When you discover them, then you want more. You start discovering films from outside America, French New Wave, Italian cinema, German cinema. and that's how I just got into it. And that's I decided to pick up a small camera, and I started making these black and white films with my friends with no dialogue. This is just purely amateur pictures, and I would edit them on then Windows Movie Maker, and people quite liked them.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided that, when I graduate, I would move to New York City, and I enrolled in NYU Film School. I took a 3-month intensive course, and I had made I learned how to shoot on celluloid film, on 16 millimeter black and white reversal, and 60 millimeter color negative. Shot 2 projects, and after that I moved back to Nigeria in 2008 or so, and I moved to Lagos. I was working alongside with MTV Base, doing managing their content, which was broadcasting on terrestrial network, and also covering like album launches for artists, doing music videos, doing a bunch of stuff up until I did that for quite a while, and I also did my first short film, Director, which is a Nollywood satire. It's about a filmmaker trying to finish a film in one day. That I got into my first festival in around 2010, 2011. I can't remember. I think it was called the Echo International Film Festival. But I just kept on working. I kept on doing work, commercial work, which paid my bills, and I also kept on making my passion projects, short films. And by 2014, I was now, Al Jazeera reached out to me to do a documentary on Nollywood. And I did that documentary. It allowed me to travel out of the country. I went to Jordan to supervise the post-production. And it was broadcast the next year. It did extremely well. And then my first feature-length film, Green, White, Green, which kind of has got me to where I am today, was shot in 2015 and came out in 2016 and premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival, which was a huge break for me. Going to such a huge festival and being on the same platform as films like Moonlight, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture that the following year. Things like Arrival, these big Hollywood pictures. I'm in the same festival, running in the same festival in competition. It was a great boost to my self-confidence, and even though the film is a very low-budget film, but it has so much heart and so much depth to it that it ended up taking me around the world. Different festivals were inviting me to screen this film. I was in Russia. I went to Russia twice. I went to Berlin. I went to Spain. I went to Tunisia. I went to Canada. I went to the United States. I ended up traveling a lot, and I followed up with my 20, and then it ended up on distribution, because you can make films and travel and showcase them in festival, but the ultimate goal you want is to distribute. So I ended up getting a deal with Netflix, Air France, Emirates, Ethiopian Airlines, Canal Plus. I put it on a few platforms, and even till date, I'm still. I was speaking to one of my distributors. I'm currently in Paris right now. I'm gonna be screening my film in Bordeaux at an event called Africa in Vision, and I was invited here to screen my second film, Lost Okoroshi. I was speaking to one of my distributors, and he's trying to get it on another platform here in France.
Okay.
But that has been the journey in a nutshell.
Yeah. Very packed journey so far. Yeah. So you said when you were watching films, you kind of figured, the difference between good and bad films. So, like, what is a good film?
For me personally, because this is all subjective.
Yeah.
A good film for me is a picture that is unique, that has certain qualities that I want to see. I want to see a picture where I'm not even thinking about the basics like good cinematography and whatnot. I want to see a director's vision.
Yeah.
I want to see your style. I want to see what's in your head, your depth. Mainly the director's vision, because I always tell people directing is probably the most overstated job in filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because if you are in a position of influence, you can hire the best team. You can hire a great cinematographer, hire the best art director, and just ask them their opinion, and they'll be like, "Oh, I think you should frame the shot this way. I think you should," and all you have to do is say, "Okay, yeah, let's do it," and you make a picture, and it'll come out okay.
Yeah.
But it's also another thing to have your own distinct vision. You watch a Tarantino movie, and sometimes I know a Tarantino picture just by his choice of music. There's going to be influences from spaghetti western. It might probably be scored by Ennio Morricone. I know the font he uses. Same thing, you see a Gaspar Noé film, there's going to be constant camera movement, and the camera might be moving in very unconventional ways. Same thing when you watch a Guy Ritchie film, there are certain ways the characters are introduced, there's way the films are paced. So I think that's what makes a good picture, having a clear, unique vision.
Yeah.
For me personally, that's what makes a good picture.
Okay, and what would you say has kind of enriched your directing over the years?
Being an artist, a visual artist, I paint as well, and I credit myself for having. I would like to say I have certain artistic taste, so to speak.
Yeah.
Also, I like telling. There's a quote Tarantino said, if you're going to make a film, think about making a film that no one has ever seen before. And make that film with all your heart and all your passion. And somehow there's no way the film is not going to be a good film.
Yeah.
Stories I always set out to tell are stories that I feel are very original. Lost Okoroshi, story about a man who's transformed into a masquerade,
Yeah.
First of its kind, coming from where we are, Green, White, Green, Nollywood satire about 4 kids coming together to make a film. This was, in fact, critics started calling it meta Nollywood because it was a film within a film.
Yeah.
It hadn't been done. So, I think those are one of the few things that makes my work distinct.
Okay. Green, White, Green screened in over 20 festivals worldwide. It also won the AFRIF Best Nigerian Film for that year. Yes. How do you select the festivals you submit your films to?
Oh yeah. There are a few things. There's a good book called Beyond Nollywood by my friend Nadia Denton.
Yeah.
She's a curator, industry influencer. She's actually also going to be in Bordeaux in a couple of days. She wrote this film Beyond Nollywood, and she was curating filmmakers in Nigerian industry that were doing films that were out of the box.
Yeah.
People like Kenneth Young, Kunle Afolayo, Tunde Kilani, but also music video directors, Clarence Peters, whatnot. She did this book, and she also kind of wrote a few tips on how to go about getting your films to certain platforms, and she advised, so it's a good book for people to check out if they're interested in um, how to get into festivals and whatnot. But for me personally,
Yeah.
I always aim for the best, and there are festivals that are just notable for bringing a mix of everything from Hollywood stars, Hollywood directors,
Yeah.
to experimental films, to distributors. You have to know what you want in a festival, So those are some of the things that I look out for when I'm selecting. Or another thing is, you also have to look for which festivals have been around the longest. Usually, the ones who have been around the longest have stood the test of time and are more credible. You want there's always aim for, if you're being aspirational, there's what they call the big three, which is Cannes, Berlinale, and I can't remember the third one. I think Venice.
Yeah.
Those are across Europe, those are the big three. Now, I've been to Berlinale twice.
Yeah.
Actually, I've been to Berlinale. I've been to Berlinale 3 times. There's this program called the Berlinale Talents.
Yeah.
Where it's just a network of filmmakers. I went for that in 2018.
Yeah.
Then I went for Berlin. My film was selected twice for Berlin Critics Week, which runs concurrently with Berlinale. So then, if another good festival for independent filmmakers is Sundance, which I've never been, but it's a good launching pad for indie filmmakers. Obviously, TIFF is also a very good festival, which has a mix of everything. It has Hollywood, indie, experimental, and it takes place in the city of Toronto.
Yeah.
Then I've also attended BFI, by the British Film Institute, the London Film Festival, which also takes place in an amazing city. And BFI is just a powerful cultural institute for cinema. So you want to look out for the big ones, the big ones. But then so even festivals like film distributions, they have a timeline. You want to start with the big ones, like TIFF, Cannes, Berlin. After you've done that run, then the mid-level festivals, which are also good as well. They might not have the level of publicity these huge festivals are, but they do gain a lot of crowd within the film industry. And then there's their niche festivals like African International Film Festivals and whatnot, which cater to specific type of films. A few good niche festivals are like the New York African Film Festival, which takes place in New York at the Lincoln Center, great venue. There's Film Africa in London. Then there's those are a couple of festivals out there people, aspiring filmmakers, can look out for.
Okay. So you studied film at the New York University. What foundation did you think that laid like for your career?
Um, so when I discovered that when I was studying film in New York, I discovered that a lot of things that they were teaching me, I kind of already picked up on my own, just being curious.
Yeah.
Um, so what that did for me was, first of all, it gave me access to equipment that I had never used before. I was using amateur stuff, and it made me learn about film itself, celluloid film.
Yeah.
That was a great experience, and it also gave you a sense of community, belonging to a group of cinephiles. It gave you first-hand experience of what it's like to be on set, working with professionals. It just gave me a glimpse of what the real world was going to
Look like.
what I was going to experience in the real world.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. So how vivid would you say your story ideas are, like before you start developing them?
Most of my ideas of just come unconsciously. Sometimes it comes as a dream, sometimes it comes just as a thought in passing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned to trust my unconscious. A huge part of my work is inspired by dreams. And anytime I get the opportunity to reference Carl Jung, I always do that.
Yeah.
Jung, for those who don't know, is a psychologist and the founder of analytical psychology. And he spent his entire life dedicated to study the unconscious and how dreams manifest and meaning of dreams. And he kind of tried to map out the mind. And that has a huge, with the Lost Okoroshi, you can see it's very Jungian in its approach. So I would say dreams have a huge role in the way I develop my work, but also in the way it feels. I belong to a group called Surreal 16.
Yeah.
Myself, Obasi, and Mike Omonwa, and we came up with this collective based on the fact that we wanted to make one film, a short film called Visions, inspired by dreams and visions.
Yeah.
And surrealism is a huge part of my filmmaking. Yeah.
Okay. So how did you meet CJ and Michael?
Online. I was a fan of both their work, and I remember seeing Mike's short film Sunije Bleed on YouTube.
Yeah.
Via Facebook, and I was struck by his minimalism. The actors didn't speak much. It was very subtle, and the tone was dark but subtle.
Yeah.
Again, back to directors having vision. He had that. He had a clear, distinct vision and style. And I just became a fan instantly, and I wanted to see more of his work. And I added him on Facebook and just started speaking.
Yeah.
Same thing with CJ. CJ, I had seen the trailer for his zombie movie, Ojuju, his zero-budget zombie movie, Ojuju.
Yeah.
And same thing, I had not seen any filmmakers which were doing the type of stuff they were doing. And I reached out to him on Facebook as well. And we all kind of were admirers of each other's work.
Yeah.
And that's how we all kind of came together, and we decided to form the collective.
Okay. So yeah, you guys started with Visions, and you shot Juju Stories.
Yes.
So
Yep.
when is it coming out?
We have a big announcement for Juju Stories, which we'll be announcing, I think, July 1st or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
A
There's
couple
a
of
huge
days. Yeah.
for Juju Stories. Yeah. So Juju Stories is a feature length done by three of us. It has 3 chapters.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an anthology film about Juju.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get to see each director's take on the subject matter,
So far with your feature films, you have always co-wrote with Africa Uko.
Yes.
What have you learned from this co-writing things with people? It's one thing to express yourself creatively, and then it's another thing to be on the same page with somebody else and create something. What have you learned from your numerous things with co-writing?
With Africa, it came natural because we're good friends. We kind of have the same sense of humor and also taste. So that came natural, and I always say I love collaboration. 2 heads are better than one.
Yeah.
But I always come up with the idea. I have a treatment, then I invite someone to come and help me flesh it out. So that's in terms of collaboration. Yeah, 2 heads are better than one, and it's like sparring. You just go back and forth. With this person, and there's no rights and wrongs. There's only just ideas and trying to fit pieces to a puzzle.
Yeah. Okay. So with Visions, I noticed that each of the member of Surreal 16, all of you guys were listed as editors, and also with Green, White, Green, and Lost Okoroshi, you were the editor.
Yes.
What was the main reason behind you editing those films?
We're editors. we're writers, we're directors, we're editors, and we're independent filmmakers.
Yeah.
So if there's something that we can take on, we'll do it. With Green, White, Green, I did the art direction as well. With Lost Okoroshi, I did the art direction and wardrobe as well. I collaborated with a friend of mine, MFR Smith, and we did both the costumes for the film. So yeah, it's just being completely hands-on, and in this day and age, because filmmaking has become so democratized that through the digital revolution, everyone has access to technology, which can be learned quite easy. Before, editing was an immense task. You edit film on this huge device called the editing bed, and I just can't even imagine working on such a device. A lot time consuming. So it's the same way Mike was shot most of his short films as well, and he's the DOP for Lost Okoroshi and his first feature-length film, The Man Who Got Tattoos. It's one of those things.
Okay, does it also have to do with protecting the vision of the film?
Not necessarily. If it could be yes and no. With Juju Stories, we worked with one editor, who cuts the entire film. And I know editors that if I had a good substantial budget, I would, because it also has to do with maybe budget as well. you're trying to cut costs. So if you can edit, you might as well. But I also, most importantly, I also enjoy editing. I enjoy, that's when the film starts coming together, because when you're filming, you just have vignettes.
Yeah.
And you have different pieces. But in editing is when you start seeing the film come to life.
At the start of your career, you did director, you did Party of Ministers and Quacks, and you moved to Green, White, Green and The Lost Okoroshi. So with some of your early work, there's this reoccurring thing with satire. Why do you feel you kind of found yourself comfortable in this satirical medium?
I do satire because of a couple of things. One, because of my love for comedy as a genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoy comedy. I enjoy almost all forms of comedy. I love skits. I love sketches. I love stand-up. I love it in film, and I love it when it's done right.
Yeah.
And satire is kind of a type of comedy, toned down, which explores social issues, but through a satirical lens. And Nigeria being kind of the mess it is,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about certain things, but do it in a way where I wasn't being not overly critical, because I am critical, but just an easier way for people to swallow it. So that's why I chose the satirical approach. And there's just so much I want to say that I want to carry the audience along, and I don't want them to get too because Green White Green initially was supposed to be a drama.
Yeah.
And it was way much darker. But again, satire just comes natural for me. I don't know why. It's just an instinctual thing, I guess.
Okay. In one of your interviews, you said you feel some way about being called a Nollywood filmmaker. So how do you describe yourself?
I'm a visual artist first and foremost, and then a filmmaker. I've said this before. The term, it's not about. I have nothing against our film industry. It's certain spaces in which the term is used that I find it quite uncomfortable, because there's this generalization of what Nollywood films are, especially through a European journalistic point of view. And even 2 years ago, I worked on a project for a German TV show.
Yeah.
They were making a comedy sketch about a German actor who comes to star in a Nollywood film.
Yeah.
And it was a joke to them. They were doing what I was doing, but in my case, I was being satirical and examining Nollywood for what it truly is, and highlighting not only the goofs, but also the amazing thing about just being tenacious and getting the work done despite all the constraints and whatnot. Whereas when they were doing it, it was more of a mockery.
Yeah.
And in fact, when they were putting together a reel of what Nollywood was, they were just using clips of different African films. They were low-budget action films from Uganda inside that reel. So you could tell that it's just general. So it's almost, sometimes it reminds me of the N word.
Yeah.
It's like when they call you a nigger. There's a stereotype of what a nigger is to a racist. So there's also a stereotype of what a Nollywood filmmaker is to foreigners. So that's why. But I have no qualms when it's same thing with the N word. How amongst black people they say nigger and it means N-I-double-G-A. It means completely something. It's a term of endearment. It's the same way I have no reservations when we are using it to describe ourselves in the industry.
Yeah.
But in certain white spaces, so to speak, I find it uncomfortable.
Okay. You directed the Al Jazeera documentary called Nollywood.
Yes.
So what interesting things do you find out about our origins and the way we operate?
That project was a crash course for me because I had been isolated and I didn't know much about the industry at all.
Yeah.
And shout out to Meg Otanwa, the actress who was my production coordinator. She was able to help me get in contact with all the people we interviewed within the industry, people from Kule Afolayo to Bimbo Manuel to who else? Tunde Kilani, to
Femi
Odubemi, yeah. She put together. So I was literally learning about the industry and learning about people like Hubert Ogunde and Kule Afolayo's dad, who and Ola Balogun, filmmakers who are making films on celluloid in the 60s and in the 70s. So it was a crash course for me. I really enjoyed working on that project.
Okay. So what would you say is your wildest Nollywood story?
Filming Lost Okoroshi was magical.
Okay.
Because a lot of the shots where you see the masquerade interacting in crowds, that's all organic. There's this shot where he's dancing in Lagos Island, and anybody who is a filmmaker knows that filming in Lagos Island is a nightmare. Filming anywhere in Lagos exterior is madness. You're going to be harassed by area boys. You're going to have issues with sound and whatnot. But the moment we entered that market with that masquerade, there was silence. And then when he started dancing, people just started gathering around and we started recording. And it was just magical that we entered inside Lagos Island, got our shot and left, and nobody was harassed.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is we actually went, shot it first. We're about to leave. Then we discovered that there was no card in the camera.
Wow.
So we had to go back and do it again. And still at that, we were able to get our shot.
Yeah.
So that was just traveling through different parts of Lagos with the masquerade was wild and crazy, and it's an experience that I'll never forget.
Yeah. So with the Lost Okoroshi, like what themes were you trying to explore with the use of the masquerade, the dreams and all that?
Oh yeah, so Lost Okoroshi is why I'm actually here in France now. I'll be screening it in a couple of days on the 24th, right? I believe on the 24th, yeah. And again, it's a film. Had it been the pandemic, didn't happen, I know that I would have kept on traveling. I was supposed to go to Egypt, and we had done BFI, we had done Toronto.
Yeah.
So it's like now the life cycle has gone, and it's on Netflix for anybody who wants to see. The life cycle has continued. I want to go back to Carl Jung. Carl Jung talks about the collective unconscious and how a lot of things about mankind, like religion, culture, cultural practices, all come from a divine source, which is the collective unconscious.
Yeah.
These themes, these archetypes, they exist in one place, and you can find them in different parts of the world, but they manifest differently. Now, the masquerade is an archetype which comes from the collective unconscious. You can find it in every culture around the world. And when I was making the film, one of the things that inspired me was the work of two French photographers, Jean-Claude Moschetti and Charles Frigga, who Moschetti was taking pictures of masquerades within Africa, and these images are just so beautiful and striking. And Charles Frigga was taking pictures of masquerades across Europe, and he published a book called The Wilder Man, which has images of what he calls pagan ceremonial costumes. But you look at them, they look exactly like masquerades in Africa. So that just blew my mind. And I've always been fascinated with masquerades, even as a child, growing up, traveling to Lantang, our village. There used to be a masquerade festival, and I remember just being in awe and fantasizing about it at night, because women and children weren't allowed to gaze at the masquerade. So it's exploring the collective unconscious, but also I wanted to talk about our cultural identity and tradition in a modern context. Are we losing some of our, because a lot of these things now, which were revered back in the day, are now considered ominous and dark. So I'm asking questions about who we are as Africans and as Nigerians, and is there still a space for these entities that were revered back in the day? Even the masquerade itself, I've seen them being demystified. I see some videos go viral of masquerades fighting, flogging each other. There's this image of a masquerade at a bet, trying to do football betting, So all these small things I see just makes me wonder, it makes me ask questions. So that's what I was trying to do with this picture. I was trying to explore certain themes.
Yeah. And I guess the masquerade is connected to your nickname, the Dodorowski. Can you tell us about that?
Oh yeah. So my cousin, who named me Dodorowski, obviously Dodo means masquerade in Hausa. And it's a mixture of two words, Dodorowski and Jodorowsky. One of my favorite and biggest influences is Alejandro Jodorowsky. And Jodorowsky, like Jung, also explores dreams and fantasy worlds and the mind and spirituality, all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Who are other like filmmakers that you really like follow their work?
Oh, there's so many. Right off the top of my head, Gaspano, Michel Gondry, Federico Fellini, Martin Scorsese, um, Guy Ritchie, uh, Woody Allen, Stanley Kubrick, obviously, Spike Lee, Wes Anderson, Spike Jones. Oh, the list is endless. What's the Alfonso Cuarón? Yes, Alfonso Cuarón. Inarritu, Guillermo del Toro, Tarantino, Michael Omonua, Tunde Kelani, Usman Semben, Jibril Mbepti, Mike Takashi. So many.
Yeah. What are the elements that will contribute to Nigeria having a cinematic movement?
The audience needs to be more enlightened. The audience needs to have more variety, more diversity. It all starts with the audience, exposure. There isn't, Nigerians are not exposed, it's sad, but we're not exposed. What we're digesting is very limited. It's very limited in scope. So I think that needs to happen. And it's not just for cinema, it's for literature, it's for music, it's for all the arts. There isn't that much exposure.
If you were stuck on an island and you had to watch a particular film or TV series, which one would that be?
TV series, it would be The Sopranos. Film, it would probably be. With film, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I can name a couple of films that I keep going back to on and on. That I rewatch almost every year. I rewatch Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather. I watched Trilogy. Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange. Federico Fellini's 8½. Woody Allen's Annie Hall. Yeah, these are a few films that I never get tired of watching.
What do you think Nollywood should be focused on? We're growing. There's a lot of expectation, international attention and all that. What do you think we should be working on to ensure that we're going in the right direction?
I think working on multiple things. We need more cinema screens and we need more diversity in the cinemas. I wish there was more spaces that were dedicated to the type of films that I'm making or CJ is making, art house films, so to speak. Again, developing the culture of diverse cinema is a world I would love to see exist within the industry. I think the industry is doing quite fine right now, but it could do better in terms of its diversity of films being made and films being presented. Also, I think Nollywood is doing quite fine. It's evolving organically, and I would like to see more of what we're doing. Just recently, a film called Imofe
Yeah.
by Ari and Chukwuesiri was picked up by Criterion Collection.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows cinema knows Criterion Collection is like a holy grail platform, and that's just amazing, you know. But we need 100 of those type of things happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
That's the world I want to see.
Okay, hopefully we get there someday. Green White Green was, I don't know whether fully or partly funded by Project Act Nollywood. What role do you think government has in all this? Should we be hoping for them to step in, or we should just do our thing?
I mean, ideally, it would be nice if government would step in, but I don't think the government owes us anything. We have to. Nollywood was built on its own.
Yeah.
And Nigeria is in such bad shape, infrastructure-wise, economically, even socially. Right now, the country is in a very sensitive spot. It would. We're just not. It's difficult to say, you know. The times are just so tough.
Yeah.
It's be. I don't want to say a displaced priority if there was now a focus on the arts or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, human beings need to be stimulated, even at times of despair.
Yeah.
They need to be that stimulation through the arts, through culture. You know, it's very important. And whether it's government, whether it's private, you know, we as individuals, we need to keep ourselves stimulated. But I personally don't feel the government owes us anything. Government is barely making it on its own.
Yeah.
So, but in an ideal world, you know, you come to places like Europe and you see how organized things are and how much influence the government has on maintaining the arts and culture. You know, I've been just the past few days I've been here. I've been going to exhibitions and going to all these cultural spaces, and I would love to see a society in Africa, in Nigeria, where we have more of that. You know, and it's a classless thing. You know.
Yeah.
It's only people in certain income brackets, so to speak, have the privilege to experience good cinema or good art or whatnot. You know, that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah. And yeah, like right now there's an ongoing censorship of the Nigerian voice. How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's we're shooting ourselves on the foot. You know, the Twitter ban is highly uncalled for. A lot of businesses rely on social media to gain access to their audience, their market.
Yeah.
I see where the Nigerian government is coming from a place of security, and they feel it's in the nation's interest to regulate social media, but we don't want to end up in a space where we are now in a police state where censorship is an issue and there's no freedom of expression. It's never a good space to be, especially in such a beautiful and diverse place like Nigeria. It's crippling, the thought of it. It's just crippling.
Yeah. Hoping and praying that something changes soon.
Yeah.
So, what are you working on at the moment?
Like I said, we're preparing to announce something for Juju in
Okay.
a couple of in about a month or so. I'm currently writing my next film, which I would love to share, but I can't. So yeah, that's what and then I'm also painting,
Okay, great stuff. How can people keep up with your work?
Lost Okoroshi is on Netflix. I'm on Instagram, Abba Makama. That's one word, Abba Makama. And usually my Instagram page is strictly for my work. You can reach me on Instagram and Twitter.
Okay. Thanks, Abba, for coming on the Naija Filmmaker.
No, it's my pleasure.
We have come to the end of this episode. Please remember to leave a rating and a review. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at ZedaGovFilm, and the podcast also on Instagram and Twitter, the Naija Film Pod. See you on the next episode. Have a good one.